Hello, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Today I'm playing a deck I'm calling Trash for Colossus, Historic Best of One. Before I get into the deck, the usual YouTube stuff, like, comment, and subscribe if you can. Thank you very much for doing that. And information about the deck list and timestamps are in the description as always. Also, I want to say thank you to all the new subscribers. I hit 100 subscribers sometime in the middle of the week. And yeah, just want to say hello and welcome. So, Trash for Colossus is a deck that I was inspired to build after an opponent destroyed me with their awesome looking deck at some point at the start of this week. I just had to try it out for myself. So let's take a look at how this deck works. It is, of course, built around this card right here, Trash for Treasure. It is a card that we got in Historic Anthology 5 just a few days ago. It is a sorcery for 2 and 8 red, and it reads, as an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact. Then, return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Essentially, this is an artifact reanimation card. So, of course, our deck is going to be filled with great artifacts to reanimate and to sack. Let's take a look at some of them. First of all, we have a whole bunch of low CMC artifacts. We have Ichor Wellspring, a great card that also came in Historic Anthology 5. It is actually the ideal target for Trash for Treasure. It reads, when Ichor Wellspring enters the battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. So let's imagine a scenario like this. It's turn 1, you play Faithless Looting, you put a big creature into the graveyard. Turn 2, you play out your Ichor Wellspring, and then on turn 3, you play Trash for Treasure, sacrificing your Ichor Wellspring. In total, you will have drawn 2 cards from the Ichor Wellspring entering the battlefield and then entering the graveyard, and you will be reanimating a big creature from your graveyard to the battlefield with the Trash for Treasure. Now, that is a very ideal situation. However, it does come up, and it probably will come up when you play this deck. Next, Mazemind Tome, also 2 CMC artifact. It allows us to scry by just tapping it. We can also pay 2 generic and tap it to draw a card. And then when it has 4 counters on it, exile it and you gain 4 life. Now, this card is also a pretty good candidate for a sacrifice target for Trash for Treasure. Let's say we put 2 or 3 counters on Mazemind Tome. We don't necessarily want to get up to the 4 life. It's not relevant. So we can just sacrifice it away to Trash for Treasure. Next, Mind Stone. It's a little bit of ramp. It also gives us an activated ability to sacrifice the Mind Stone and draw a card. Again, another ideal target for your Trash for Treasure sacrifice. And then our last card, we're only playing one of this, Shadow Spear. It is a 1 CMC artifact that we can equip to our big creatures. Now, I would say that this card is probably not the best thing to be sacrificing to Trash for Treasure, but if you're in a pinch, you might have to do it. The reason I don't think sacrificing the Shadow Spear is a good idea is because we have a 10/10 big creature in our deck, but it doesn't have trample, it doesn't have any kind of evasion. So if your opponent has a bunch of 1/1 elves on the field, that Colossus is never getting in. If we can equip the Shadow Spear to it, suddenly give it trample and lifelink, it's going to be a threat that the opponent won't be able to deal with. But again, if you're in a position, any of these cards will be great targets to sacrifice for the Trash for Treasure because we have a lot of cards that we can put into our graveyard to bring out. Let's look at some of those. These are our mid-range artifacts. First, we have the Hedron Archive for 4. It taps for 2 generic, and then it has an activated ability to sacrifice it and draw 2 cards. Now, this is a card that you probably just want to be hard casting 99% of the time in your games, but once in a while, you might reanimate it from the graveyard if you have the opportunity to do so. Also, I wouldn't necessarily sacrifice the Hedron Archive to Trash for Treasure, but again, if the situation comes up where you're in a pinch, you can still do that. Next, Lithoform Engine, a 4 CMC artifact. It is a legendary artifact. We're only playing one of it, but it has a lot of abilities. It says first, 2 tap. Copy target activated or triggered ability you control. You may choose a new target for the copy. Well, let's say we sacrifice our Hedron Archive to draw 2 cards. We can also tap our Lithoform Engine to copy that ability and draw 2 more cards. Next, 3, tap target copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for this copy. We only play 2 sorceries in the deck, Faithless Looting and Sweltering Suns, but Sweltering Suns is a great target for this. Let's say we have 6 mana, we have the Lithoform Engine on the field, our opponent has a whole bunch of 5/5s and 6/6s. Well, you can cast your Sweltering Suns, copy it, and suddenly you're dealing 6 damage to the entire board. And then finally, 4 tap, copy target permanent spell you control. I'm going to put in a little clip here to show how that ability can get out of hand real fast. Alright, didn't that look like fun? Next, Forsaken Monument, 5 generic for a legendary artifact. There are 2 of them in the deck. It has 3 different abilities. First, it says colorless creatures you control get +2/+2. Not really important. The only creature it's going to affect is the Metalwork Colossus, bumping it up from a 10/10 to a 12/12. Not really going to be too important most of the time. Next, a little bit more important, whenever you tap a permanent for generic mana, add an additional generic mana. Well, the Hedron Archive over there already taps for 2. Suddenly it's going to be tapping for 3 generic when we have a Forsaken Monument on the field. Also, we have some lands that are affected by this card, and I'll talk about them in a minute. And then finally, whenever you cast a colorless spell, you gain 2 life. Well, we're playing a whole bunch of cheap colorless spells, so against a very aggressive opponent where we're on the brink of death, suddenly with a Forsaken Monument on the field, we could be gaining 2, 4, 6 life per turn. And that can just buy us enough time to pull off our game plan. Next, we have the big ones. Combustible Gearhulk 4 and Metalwork Colossus also 4. These are the prime targets for reanimation, and I'm going to be talking about each of these cards in depth in a few minutes. Next, the last 2 cards I want to talk about right now are Faithless Looting. It is a sorcery for 1, and this is going to be the card that's going to enable most of our reanimation. Of course, with Trash for Treasure, we need something in the graveyard to be bringing back onto the field. So casting a Faithless Looting on turn 1, putting a Combustible Gearhulk or a Forsaken Monument into the graveyard, so then on turn 3 we can cast our Trash for Treasure, sacrifice something like an Ichor Wellspring, bring it to the field. Faithless Looting is going to enable that. And then Sweltering Suns, we need board wipes in this deck because an aggressive opponent is going to be the biggest threat to us. Our deck is a little bit slow. It doesn't really do anything until like turn 4, turn 5, turn 6. So on turn 3, we might have to clear out 2 or 3 creatures just to hold off the opponent for a little while. Now I've chosen Sweltering Suns over Anger of the Gods simply because it has Cycling 3. There are going to be matches where you don't necessarily need the Sweltering Suns, and I think being able to cycle it away is going to be very important. Now, with Sweltering Suns, I want to warn you that the auto tapper, when playing this deck, can be a little funky. Take a look at this. Alright, so that one hurt me quite a bit because that was a game I had on lockdown probably if I were able to cast out both of those Sweltering Suns. But since the auto tapper decided to tap down 3 of my 4 available red mana, the game went to my opponent, and all I want to say is be careful. Next, let's talk about the Combustible Gearhulk. This is one of our 2 main threats in the deck. It is a 6/6 first strike for 6. By itself, it's okay. Like a 6/6 first striker is going to basically stop all of your opponent's aggression most of the time. Then it has a sweet ability. It says when Combustible Gearhulk enters the battlefield, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If the opponent just lets you draw 3 cards, that's a lot of gas, and you're going to be able to do a lot with those cards most of the time. Next, if the player doesn't want you to draw 3 cards, you mill 3 cards. Then Combustible Gearhulk deals damage to that player equal to the total mana value of those cards. Well, our deck is playing a whole bunch of big cards. We have Lithoform Engine and Hedron Archive both at 4, Forsaken Monument at 5, Combustible Gearhulk at 6, and Metalwork Colossus at 11. Even if you just hit 1 or 2 of these cards, you're going to be chunking the opponent for a ton of damage. Take a look at this clip. All right, how sweet was that? Now, to be perfectly honest, it's not going to work out like that most of the time. In fact, a lot of the time, your opponent's just going to say, sure, draw 3 cards. And the reason they're saying that is because, well, maybe you're tapped out, they have lethal already on board, or maybe they have a burn spell in hand that's going to kill you, something like that. Or maybe they're going to say, sure, draw 3 cards, and you're going to draw land, Shadow Spear. Not going to really help you in a lot of situations. Or maybe the opponent just says, yeah, sure, mill 3 cards, and you mill land, Mind Stone. You deal 2 damage to the opponent's face. They're at 20 life. It's irrelevant. It's going to feel real bad. But you are still putting a 6/6 first strike creature onto the battlefield, which is going to be very impactful. And when this Combustible Gearhulk does hit, it's going to feel real good. Trust me. Next, Metalwork Colossus is our other big bad guy, but it is 11 CMC. That is a steep cost. However, we can get a little bit of a reduction. It says Metalwork Colossus costs X less to cast, where X is the total converted mana cost of non-creature artifacts you control. Well, we have a whole bunch of non-creature artifacts in the deck, and usually we can get a discount of 7, 8, 9 on the Metalwork Colossus. Sometimes you can get the full 11 discounted and put out a Metalwork Colossus for free. Next, it also has a second ability that says sacrifice 2 artifacts, return Metalwork Colossus from your graveyard to your hand. That means it's going to be very hard for the Metalwork Colossus to go away permanently. Now, you can't do this constantly with this deck, but you are going to probably be able to do this 1 or 2 times in a match. And ideally, the best thing that you can do is have 2 Ichor Wellsprings on the field, sacrifice both of the Wellsprings to bring back the Metalwork Colossus, you draw 2 cards, and then you're probably going to be able to play out your Colossus. And finally, the last card in the deck is none other than Mr. Fun himself, Ugin the Spirit Dragon. I'm playing it as a one-of just because you might get yourself into some sticky situations and you just sometimes need a clean board wipe. I feel bad putting the Spirit Dragon in the deck because I really don't like Ugin, but I think it is an important card to have in the deck, especially if you run up against an opponent that's like on mono white life gain. They can get creatures that are like 12-12, 13-13, 14-14. You get into these weird board stalls, and you really just need Ugin to do it. Now, we're only playing one of them in the deck, but usually that's not going to be a big problem because our deck tears through card draw. And in fact, because of that, Narset is going to be one of your biggest foes in when playing this deck. Just a quick thing to mention. Anyways, Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Sometimes you got to rely on old Mr. Fun. Next, talk about the lands. We are playing a lot of mountains in the deck. However, there are 3 important lands. Buried Ruins. It has a great ability that says return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Of course, you have to sacrifice the Buried Ruins, but sometimes you can get back a Metalwork Colossus or other valuable artifacts just for the cost of 1 land. Not a big deal. Radiant Fountain, going to gain us a little bit of life, which is very important just to stay alive against aggressive decks. And then Ramunap Ruins to give us a little bit of reach. But the most important thing is how it works with Forsaken Monument. I've already mentioned that Forsaken Monument allows generic mana to be kind of doubled. All of these tap for generic mana, and then with a Forsaken Monument on the field, they will be tapping for 2. So that is the Trash for Colossus deck. Best of 1. Gonna try it out in a few games and hopefully it goes well. I've been playing this deck for actually like 4 or 5 days now and just having a lot of fun with it. Even when it doesn't win, it's usually doing something neat. Alright, let's jump into some games, see how it goes. Alright, Trash for Colossus. Hopefully running into some opponents who are also playing some kind of fun decks. The power level of this deck is definitely a lot lower than the things that you'll probably run into in Best of 1. But, I mean, how could I resist not building a deck with Trash for Treasure eventually? And Ichor Wellspring. Ichor Wellspring is actually the card that I like a lot more. I remember having a lot of fun with it in Pauper when I used to play Pauper a lot more than I do now. And, yeah, as soon as I saw that card being printed, I kind of thought, yeah, I want to be doing that. So, it's kind of looking like the opponent might be doing something like a Velomachus Time Warp, and they're going first, so if that's the case, it could be big trouble for me. Still, the game plan right now is turn 2 Mind Stone, turn 3 Hedron Archive, and then hopefully try to find something. I didn't use the Faithless Looting yet because I'm not sure. I kind of want one thing that I can pitch into the graveyard reliably. So, Radiant Fountain, gain a little bit of life. Try to go out with the Mind Stone. No counter from the opponent. Sure. I did make a little bit of a mistake when I did my intro for the deck. I noticed that my numbers were off, and I had forgotten to change them on the first page. The reason for that was Faithless Looting is a rare on MTGA, but it shouldn't be a rare. It's, you know, it's an uncommon, sometimes, or mostly common, sometimes uncommon in most other printings of the card. So when I just looked at the breakdown of the rarities on my MTG Goldfish breakdown, I had seen that it had this number for rares, and I just assumed that that was the number. So I had changed that for the last slide, but I forgot to change it on the first slide, and that's why I have a little change there, if you're wondering about that. But yeah, Faithless Looting being a rare is a real big bummer. I have a lot of negative feelings about that. So the opponent not doing a whole lot over there, and neither are we. So I think I'm going to dig a little bit with this first Faithless Looting. Find a Sweltering Suns and a Trash for Treasure. Well, I don't imagine either of these cards are going to be overly important. Actually, maybe I should just put this one in the bin. Okay, I'll do that, and then I'm going to play out a Hedron Archive. And then next turn, we're going to have Ugin mana. So, maybe? Really don't want to be winning this on the back of Ugin, but that's what it might come down to. I'm going to cycle this because I really suspect that they don't have any kind of target. And now we have a Combustible Gearhulk, which came a little late. So, still, I think I'm going to Faithless Looting, put old Combustible and the other Faithless Looting into the graveyard, and then I'm going to try to cast out a Trash for Treasure, actually. Does it matter how I tap? Yes. I'm going to tap it this way. I kind of feel like this won't resolve, but maybe I can have the follow-up Ugin next turn. Big downside to the Trash for Treasure card is that if your opponent has a Memory Lapse, for example, you have to sacrifice that first artifact as a part of the cost, and therefore the opponent definitely got a better exchange in that than I did. But it was something that you're going to have to deal with. Counter spells are going to be like the most annoying decks to go up against. Obviously, they always are. So, what I think I'm going to do is try the Trash for Treasure one more time. I am going to draw a card with the Mazemind Tome first, and then sack the Tome. If they have another counter, they have another counter. Well, we got to run them down so we can get the Ugin onto the field eventually. Yep. Super fun from the opponent. We could Faithless Looting, but I don't think so. I think I'm just going to cycle the Sweltering Suns. The opponent's playing the full range of the the cards that everybody loves the most in Historic. I'm certain of that. Really says a lot about the power level of the Mystical Archive cards when decks are basically built entirely on the back of the Mystical Archives. Really scary thought for the future. Would you look at that? 3 turns in a row. More Mystical Archive cards with the Mizzix Mastery, a card I'm sure all of you love. Exciting, isn't it? Really, a Mizzix Mastery for a Brainstorm. Okay. So they had... Oh, come on. Never have I wanted to beat an opponent so badly. And that's certainly not true. There are worse offenders, but I'm feeling pretty motivated right now. Well, it looks like we finally get a turn. I am going to cycle this because they're not playing anything that's not ridiculous. And then... So I don't know if I just want to go down with the Ugin now, or do I want to try pounding away at this Trash for Treasure? You know what? I came here to do Trash for Treasure, so I'm going to do Trash for Treasure. That is interesting. Not super interesting, but interesting enough to make me want to play it out first. So I will try. Oh, the opponent appears not to have any counter magic left. Well, that's too bad. I wish I had played out the Ugin now. Take the damage. Take the damage. Always cheering for it. The big problem with Combustible Gearhulk is nobody knows what it does, and every time you play it out, the opponent has to sit there and read the card and then figure out if they should push decline or whatever the other option is, because it's not very clear. They don't take the damage. They would have taken 8 had they decided to do that. However, now that I have the Forsaken Monument on the field, I now have access to 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 mana. Is that right? 16 mana. So I can comfortably get this Ugin down. Of course, now they put Mr. Funbag in the graveyard. The other Mr. Funbag, Velomachus. Well, here's the hope, is that they've already used 2 Time Warps, now 3. They can't have that many more Time Warps, right? And we're at 21 life. We did gain life with the Forsaken Monument, I guess. No, that's all life from the Radiant Fountain. But we will be gaining life from the Hedron Archive soon. And I can kill Velomachus, but it also kills my Combustible Gearhulk. Is that all 4? That's all 4 Time Walks. Alright. And they double cast 2 of them already, so. How many Mizzix Masteries have they used? They've used 3. So realistically, they only have 1 more Time Warp. I don't know if this deck also plays the other Time Walk card. Alrund's Epiphany. Headphones are dying. Okay, so now I guess it's Ugin and then wipe the board and then rebuild from that. Hopefully they don't have like a hard cast Velomachus to keep going with crazy things. They're digging, digging, digging. 22 cards left in their deck. Alright. Well, that's cool. Alright, so I think first things first, I have to throw down the Ugin. Gain 2 life. Hopefully they don't have a counterspell. Memory lapse. Well, as far as counterspells go, that's okay. Next, I'm going to put out this. I have 4 mana, so then what I'm going to do is copy that. And we're going to make 2 12/12s. Go up to 17 life. Opponent's on 1 card. We have an Ugin coming. Don't hit the Mizzix Mastery. That's all I'm asking. Prismari Command. Okay, they can kill a Metalwork Colossus. They should probably kill... it doesn't matter which one they kill. But Prismari Command, very effective against us. And maybe they should be killing the Forsaken Monument or the Lithoform Engine over... they have no good choices here. Let's just admit that. Oh. Alright, so the opponent drawing well. But now things change. Sure. So put this out. Gain 2 life. -7. Bojangles knows what's up, and they're done. That game, I kind of wish I got to play it a little bit more, but oh, this feels so good to start off like that. Next one. All right, so more trash for Colossus. That first game, I'm not sure I'll be able to live up to that first game. It actually went super well, and it might all be downhill from here. The game saying hello, very friendly fellow over there. Elves, a Sweltering Sun. So you know what? We're in business. Let's hope they flood out the board with yummy, yummy elves to swelter away. Let's go down with the Maze Mind Tome. I think it's almost 100% chance I'm going to cast the board wipe next turn. Although if they only have... Oh, so things get complicated now. because I'm assuming they have a collected company, and the opponent going first is very good for them. So now, as much as I would love to Swelter, maybe it's just Swelter this turn, Swelter next turn. Yeah, let's do that. What? They didn't... Okay, so that was unexpected. I very much expected them to tap the Llanowar Elf, but maybe our opponent just has nothing? I don't think I want a mountain right now. Instead I get a Radiant Fountain. Sure. So, go out with the Hedron Archive and pass it back to the opponent. There's the collected company. So they drew it. I believe it was that card, and I think that tells us. They got 2 lords, so 1 more lord and things get really hairy for us. The Sweltering Suns is great, but as soon as you're facing elves with 3 lords, things are bad. Things are bad. So now what do I do? I need... What do I need? Another Sweltering Suns. I need a Lithoform Engine. Okay. Well, I guess it is a Combustible Gearhulk time, so I can maybe stand in the face of these elves a little bit until I possibly find another answer. That was a really fortunate draw for the opponent to hit 2 lords on the collected company and then have another lord. Anyways, we're going to roll the dice. Giving us 3 cards is going to be huge if we can survive 1 more turn, and then maybe they just take the damage here. And it's a good amount of damage. Yeah. 14 damage to the dome. Nothing to sneer at there. Although this could be bad. Only 1 more lord. Okay. Well, we're dead. We're not dead. Technically, we're not dead. Now we're dead because this card is silly. Doesn't even... if you watch my video on Spirits the other day, I kind of talked about how I like Shacklegeist, and I like Shacklegeist because it forces you to have a choice. Well, because it doesn't need to tap, there's no choice to the Allosaurus Shepherd. You're just going to pump up your creatures every single time. Now, the opponent decided not to kill me, so we had a chance there. I should have stopped and checked. We also only have 3 red sources, so I think it doesn't really matter what I do here. Not good enough. You think the opponent's gonna be cool? Let's see if the opponent's cool. Let's see if they like to gamble, maybe. Okay, opponent. Combustible Gearhulk number 2. Do you take the damage or do you let me draw? You take the damage, right? Every single time. Oh, I would have killed them. Alright. Good game, opponent. Elves doing elvish things. We were so close. If we had gone first, maybe it would have been a little bit of a different story. But still, the way the lords came out, I think, wow, we're not gonna beat that. And the opponent's gonna showboat a little bit. Come on, bud. All right. Just crash in. Send them all. Yeah. Okay. Pump them. Sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, come on. There you go. There you go. We're very dead. We were very dead last turn, if you had realized. No. Sure. What can you do? Next one. All right, match number 3. Hopefully we're on the play, first of all. And hopefully we don't run into elves that just have tons and tons of lords, ideally. Opening hand, not terrible. It's a little bit clunky, but I think I'm going to try it. The opponent's going first again, so we are hitting our lucky streak of on the draw. Yay. Not where you want to be in best of 1, but opponent mulliganed down just a little bit, and they are on an Inquisition Thoughtseize deck, so they should take the Mind Stone, but hopefully they don't. They take the Trash for Treasure. I'm so fine with that. I'm going to hold the Faithless Looting. Okay, so this is a pretty bad matchup because our removal is Sweltering Suns, and against, you know, the Spirit Dancer especially, it's going to get out of control very quickly. Our Sweltering Suns is not usually going to be able to compete with it. In fact, just one thing going onto it puts it out of range of Sweltering Suns. So as far as bad matchups go, we found it. That elf matchup actually wasn't a bad matchup. It just didn't quite work out. Like, it was so close, right? You could see the line. It just leaned a little bit too hard in the opponent's favor there. I think last turn I made a mistake. I probably should have put out the Mind Stone, but at least this way we do get a draw with the Maze Mind Tome. Again, it's pretty fruitless. Like, what am I going to do against a 7-9? That's certainly going to be much bigger than a 7-9 after this turn. They might even just be able to kill us straight up here. Losing 2 life, quite irrelevant for the opponent. They take the Forsaken Monument, sure. And is that 13? It's going to be very close. And it's 13. At least it was fast, right? No showboating elf on the other side of this one, at least. Next one. All right, match number 4. Started off really well, and then things have kind of just gone downhill. I don't hate this hand. I'm going to keep it. Turn 1, Faithless Looting. Hopefully I can do that. And then pitching the Combustible Gearhulk and a Metalwork Colossus. Hopefully finding a 2 CMC artifact. Well, there we go. Okay. So, next turn we can go out with the Radiant Fountain into Shadow Spear. And then on the follow-up turn, reanimate something with the Trash for Treasure. Ideally. At least I got to play first this time. Do you think the opponent likes Ugin? Perhaps. Okay, your turn, opponent. Okay, Growth Spiral. So we'll be able to get out probably the Combustible Gearhulk. I tend to prefer the Combustible Gearhulk over the Metalwork Colossus. It just seems to do a little bit more. Lower power, but overall better. Now I am going to be losing my Shadow Spear here, but I think that's fine against Sultai. And can always reanimate it later on. See if the opponent's brave and takes the damage or not. They're reading the card, like all the opponents. They do take the damage. They take 12. It's a good amount of damage. And they got to deal with the Combustible Gearhulk now. Of course, we don't have any follow-up, but they don't know that. Oh, they have the Bajuka Bog. What did they get rid of? Some pretty good things. Still, we get in for 6. Play... Oh, I hate that. Play out the Maze Mind Tome. Go. I don't know what it is about First Strike, why, you know, the First Strike damage goes in and then it moves to normal damage and you have to click through it, even though there isn't any normal damage to go. And, yeah. So, bullied the opponent out of this one. And... okay, kind of makes up for the last couple games. Let's go on to the next one. All right, match number 5. Hopefully we get to bully the opponents again. Taking, how much did he get hit for? I think it was 12. Did that a couple more times. Feel real good about this deck. I'm going to keep this one, mostly because I like having Sweltering Suns in the opening hand, especially against a Luris deck. I think I can Faithless Looting this time because I can at least pitch the Metalwork Colossus. Black. Okay. So we need the third land. I guess I'll pitch one of the Hedron Archives. And then next turn, Mind Stone, and then follow it up with a Hedron Archive. If I need the Sweltering Suns, I have access to it. Young Pyromancer, well, Sweltering Suns can be great. Now, the question is, well, no, it's not really much of a question. I was saying, should I Sweltering Suns now? There's no possibility of doing that. Let's do this first. That way, next turn, if something happens to this Sweltering Suns, which is certainly happening right now, I can at least go Radiant Fountain into the Hedron Archive, get a lot of mana, and then maybe turn that into something going forward. Very timely Thoughtseize for the opponent. But we do have 3 more in the deck. Oh, opponent, come on. Don't do that. So there are a lot of decks you don't want to face if you're going to be playing this one. I mentioned Narset in the intro. Narset's awful. We have so many cards that are just drawing us a ton of cards. And that's real bad. The other one, black, obviously. You don't want to really run into somebody that can easily remove our creatures. I don't know what to do here. I don't really want a Faithless Looting with 1 card in hand. So, pass. Yeah. So black is pretty annoying. Removal, obviously Prismari command decks are going to be very annoying for us to deal with. Any kind of counter magic is also going to be kind of annoying. So there's a laundry list of things that are not super great for us. Next turn, what I can do is I can put up the mountain, and then I feel more comfortable playing the Faithless Looting, because then I can maybe find another Sweltering Suns, which hopefully can get me back into this game, or at least drag it out a little bit longer. Well, okay, that completely changes because our opponent's gone Thoughtseize, 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 Inquisition. Cool. And they get our mountain. Wow. Talk about lottery ticket for the opponent over there. Maybe I shouldn't have played out that Radiant Fountain since I have the Faithless Lootings in hand. I don't really know. I have a feeling Cruxa's coming down this turn though, and there's not a whole lot I can do about this. The opponent's just picked me apart. So, we lose pretty much no matter what, I think, at this point. Really? They had the cards for Cruxa. Huh. Well, they can still Cruxa now. They had the swamp, I guess. So, yay? All right. So when a Thoughtseize deck lines up, that's what's going to happen. Give the opponent the old hearts and move on with their lives. Next one. All right. What are we up to? 6, I think. Hopefully it starts to turn. The opponents have just been running super hot. That last game was very, very gross. I think this hand's okay to keep. We get to play first. We can go out with an Ichor Wellspring, hopefully draw into something good. Black, but maybe the opponent's on like a Reanimator deck. If I see like a Temple of Malady, that's kind of what I think. Forgot to give the opponent a hello. Okay, land, not great. But if I go, Hedron Archive in a turn, another Hedron Archive, then I can finally, I can get out the Metalwork Colossus. That's not terrible, because at least it gives us a play this turn. Okay, pass to you. You'll notice that the Metalwork Colossus's cost gets down very, very quickly. Okay, well, that's annoying. However, we can block it with the Metalwork Colossus. It will die, but we can always bring it back, right? So now I think I want to go out with the Forsaken Monument. I'm going to take 5 damage potentially this turn, but I think I'd rather just have the Forsaken Monument on the field, and then we're getting a lot of extra mana from these things. And Metalwork Colossus 100% is going to be coming down next turn. Okay, they get in for the 5. Nope, just up, up. Okay, opponent finally decides just on 4. Okay. So, play this out, sure. Gain a little bit of life. Play this out. Gain more life. Play out the Metalwork Colossus. Gain more life. Play out the Mind Stone. Why not? Gain more life. And we still have plenty of mana to do things with. If I pull an Ugin now, it'd be awfully good. Oh, I don't have removal for it. They were hovering over it. Usually when somebody hovers over a card, you know they're thinking about destroying it. But being at its 11... Darn. Okay, so Metalwork Colossus dies. And kind of complicates things. We did gain a lot of life, though, so we have time. I'm going to pass. Yep. And Radiant Fountain, sure. Not a great one. What I'm going to do is tap this for 2, first of all. And then bring the Colossus back to hand. Sacrifice those 2 things. Draw a card from the Ichor Wellsprings. Another land, as appropriate. Do that. Put this out. And I think I'm kind of getting to a position where I might start sacking the Hedron Archives. Perhaps I should have sacked it there, just to dig. This is like the last game all over again, where the opponent just kind of has those exact answers. Alright. Well, yeah, desperation mode a little bit. Trash for treasure, trash for treasure. Okay, do it again. Give me an Ichor Wellspring. Not an Ichor Wellspring. Hey, Ichor Wellspring. Perfect. So, let's get a Metalwork Colossus. Trade in the Ichor Wellspring. Maze My Atonement is very good. Put that out, put this out. Gain some life. Look how annoying the Metalwork Colossus is, though. If you can't get rid of it, it just sticks around. Actually, I should do this first. Yeah. Yeah, that seemed like the right choice. They're coming for you. Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize is good. The Trash for Treasure would have been nice to hang on to, but that's too bad. It'd be really nice to find a Shadow Spear now, especially because of the 1/1 Elves. I think I mentioned exactly that. If your opponent has a couple of 1/1 Elves, it's going to be very hard to get rid of them, or to get in with the Metalwork Colossus. Offering the trade. Yeah, making me think they probably have another Questing Beast. If that's the case, that's the case. Okay, that's what I wanted to see. Okay, so first, let's get in. Take the 12. I think my opponent wanted to block, and they maybe clicked on the Llanowar Elves. If you don't know, Z or Z, wherever you're from, is the undo button. So if you ever tap something, for example, if I tap that, I can press... It shows it over here, right? Yeah, undo is that. I have a feeling the opponent maybe didn't know that was what they had to do. Okay, they give us cards, and you know what? They're not terrible cards. I think what I want to do, though, is get this Metalwork Colossus back into my hand for the cost of a Buried Ruins. Play it out for free. Gain a little bit more life. Put out the Mind Stone, because why not? Forsaken Monument's just bonkers. Maybe I should be taking advantage of it more in this deck. I'm not really using it to its full potential, but yeah, it's such a great card. Fatal Push on that, and they scoop it up. Cool, pretty dominant display there. Let's go on to a few more. All right, a little bit more with Trash for Colossus. Last game really showcased how awesome the Colossus's cycling can kind of be. They just, you know, they never stay out of the graveyard if you have these. And I've actually thought about maybe changing the deck up a little bit, putting more treasure synergies into the deck. that might be a good idea because of the recursion that we want. But I haven't played around with the idea. When I put this one together, it kind of felt all right, and I just kind of went with it. So, the opponent's being aggressive. That's bad news because I don't have a Sweltering Suns. So I'm going to scry and then probably upkeep scry, digging for one of the 4 Sweltering Suns. Got to imagine they're going to have a lot more. Yeah. Oh my god, a Sweltering Suns right now. Please, please, please find it. Not it. Okay. Get another look. Not it. Draw. Not it. Okay. So now we're in trouble. Now we're really in trouble. We didn't draw particularly well. The top of the deck looked a little bad. Okay. Oh, if they hit the Sweltering Suns with the Robber of the Rich. Okay, no, they helped us. They got a Ramen Up Runes off the top of the deck. Shock. So, pretty much coming down to this draw. Okay. Oh, no. Okay. I guess I put that out. I put out the Hedron Archive because I have literally nothing. They have 2, 4, 6, 7 damage. If they have 1 spell, like a shock, we are dead. Oh, they found the Metalwork Colossus. Okay. Well, this is the aggro thing that I talked about. It was pretty bad. Had I had the Sweltering Suns, it would have been okay. That's why I like keeping opening hands with them almost no matter what. But let's go to the last one. Okay. Hopefully we perform well in this last game. I have high hopes for our deck. Hopefully we don't get run over. Opening hand, sure, fine. Faithless Looting, pitch the Colossus. Hopefully find something good. Not great. Also hope the opponent's not on something too fast. Blue, not great. Hey, look who it is. The Sweltering Sun showing up right on time, right? Against the blue deck. That's, yeah, that's magic for you, right? Sweltering Suns against Azorius and not Sweltering Suns against Gruul aggro. Oh, well, the opponent doesn't seem to have anything, so going to take advantage of that as best I can. Metalwork Colossus already down to 5. Let's see what's on the top. I like Ichor Wellspring, I think. We do have 2 Colossus in the graveyard, so pretty good to have an Ichor Wellspring on the field. Hey, look what it is. Well, I think because of the way things are looking, I'm going to put out the Metalwork Colossus. See if I can get away with that. Could have opted just to draw with the tome, but instead, okay, Memory Lapse, that's fine. Okay.
We can fix. I know.
I'm gonna be able to bounce my Colossus later. Alright, so my opponent seems to be tapped out. That means I want to play this. I don't think I can play my mana in a way that allows me to take advantage of... No, I can. So I do this, this, this. So again, the auto tapper, not the best when playing this deck because there is some nuance to it. I wanted to keep the Radiant Fountain up so I could draw a card later with the Mazemind Tome. So, Colossus on the field. Let's see if they just go for the bounce. They don't.
I think I know what to do.
Probably going to need to find some kind of help against our opponent. The Field of Ruin is actually kind of annoying if they destroy our thing here. So, here's a cute little thing. If your opponent's board wiping and you have a situation like this where you have a Metalwork Colossus out, well, you can use this opportunity to sack and sack. So, you may as well take advantage of situations like that when you can. We draw a card, and get a Metalwork Colossus into hand. They destroy nothing. Easy peasy. Draw a card. Okay. Kind of wish this were a Ichor Wellspring. Kind of what I want to see now. So all the Metalwork Colossus are out of our deck. So this Combustible Gearhulk's damage won't be so terrible. They could probably just take it comfortably. But maybe they don't know that. Oh, they still took 7. Okay. Well, hopefully they don't have a board wipe. But again, I can sack these two to bring back something. You see what's going on, right? We also have a draw with the Mazemind Tome on the Radiant Fountain, so things look okay. I haven't read the ultimate here. You get an emblem with, whenever your opponent casts their first spell each turn, counter that spell. Well, that's bad. Okay. Gonna have to do something about that Jace, and unfortunately, I don't think I can. Okay. So I wonder if my opponent's just like playing board wipe tribal. Is that what this deck is? We'll put 2 Colossus onto the field. Same logic with this. You know, have 2 out. 2 can recycle into 1 at least. I'm not going to be using much mana, so I think I'm going to Faithless Looting. Maybe get rid of these 2 Sweltering Suns. Just 1 Sweltering Sun. Okay. So I wonder if the opponent's going to go for the emblem this time with the Jace. That's going to be a pretty good emblem. They don't. Okay. Narset. Big problem. So I'm wondering if I want to cycle this now. Is that something I'm going to be doing? I think so. Okay, trash for treasure. Cool.
My prowess is unmatched by my peers. Keep an open
So the cool
mind.
thing about this is that they have you draw it, and Narset stops that. By cool thing, I mean it's totally not a cool thing. They're gonna commit that. Yeah. I also now realize I should have drawn with this Mazemind Tome. Oops. Okay, so the opponent has given us a little bit of a window. And Combustible Gearhulk's quite good. Do I just want to kill the Jace, or do I want to kill the Narset? I think the Narset's actually more of a problem. Wow. Alright, I don't think the opponent had to concede there, but I'm going to take it because things were looking a little iffy. Let's go to wrap up. Alright, so Trash for Colossus played 8 games, won 4, lost 4. 50% win rate is about as good as you can hope for this deck, I think, in Best of 1, in Historic. There are a lot of crazy things happening in Best of 1, and the crazy things that we're doing are probably not nearly as powerful as something like Velomachus turns or Elves or all the other crazy stuff that you come to expect from Best of 1. Also, before I get into talking about some of the cards, I did want to mention one more time that my original rare and uncommon count was wrong in the intro, and that was because when I looked at the breakdown on MTG Goldfish, they had Faithless Looting as an uncommon instead of a rare. It's a rare on Arena, because yay. Anyways, the rares in the deck, Metalwork Colossus, Faithless Looting, Sweltering Sun, and Shadow Spear to make up 15. It's not the most expensive deck, but the problem is Metalwork Colossus is not a great card to craft. Shadow Spear is not bad if you play a lot of creature aggro decks. You only need one of it. It's pretty good to have in your collection. Faithless Looting, you probably already have Faithless Looting if you like that style of deck. If you don't, then you don't want to craft it. And then Sweltering Suns is a questionable craft as well because you probably want to craft Anger of the Gods over Sweltering Suns. Still, it's not the most expensive deck, and it is a whole lot of fun. While playing it, I had a blast. Some of the games were really one-sided for our opponents, but that's okay. It's going to happen. You're going to get run over once in a while. Still, you saw cool things. We saw some Combustible Gearhulks hit in face for quite a bit of damage. No 20 to the dome yet, but still getting close. Metalwork Colossus, we saw some good reanimation with that. There were a couple of games with the one against the Questing Beast, the Golgari mid-range deck that the opponent was on. They just couldn't deal with it. It just kept coming back, and eventually it just ground them out. Yeah, so overall the deck is cool. I like it a lot. I'm going to keep playing it in my free time just because I think it's kind of fun. It's kind of relaxing to play it. There's not too much pressure when playing this deck. So, if you made it to the end of the video, thank you very much for sticking around as always. See you in the next one.